Welcome to A Time to Remember. Today, we're remembering the very beginnings of Sudbury youth soccer. I'm Peggy Fredrickson, and with me are Don Soule and John Wilson Sr. And we've all lived at Sudbury more than 40 years. What year did you come to Sudbury, John?
1946.
And you were a youngster then.
Yes, I was 15, and my parents bought 2 acres of land on Horse Pond Road next to my sister, Mary Lupian, who had been up here for a number of years. And we built a house there.
Okay, and Don, when did you come to Sudbury?
1962.
Ah.
From Winchester at the time.
Well, okay. I'm wondering what you found as far as soccer at that point in time. And let's start with you, John. What was the situation in Sudbury for soccer?
It was just about non-existent, I think. I remember kicking the ball around up at the Flynn building, where I went to 1 year of school up there, the 8th grade. And that's it. Baseball was pretty big then. They didn't have a lot of sports. So I don't think there was too much until George Horton got things going at the high school. And I'm not sure what year that was.
George was the high school coach, and at that time was also the employee of the of the Sudbury Park and Rec, and was involved in creating programs for the town, and was anxious to see something begin, based pretty much on what John was involved with in the early stages.
Let's hear, John, what were you involved with soccer in the early stages?
Well, in 1971, I think it was in the spring, I was on the parish council. I replaced Dr. Morris Fitzgerald, who was the dentist down at his office and residence on Concord Road. And I was taking over from him with youth activities and physical facilities at Our Lady of Fatima. And I asked him, when talking with him, to get some ideas of what he had been doing, if there was something new that we could maybe do. And we had this CYO, Catholic Youth Organization, basketball that had been going for years. And he says, well, soccer was getting very popular, so maybe we could try something like that. So after rummaging around a bit, and I found out that a priest in Boston at St. John St. Huge Parish was starting a soccer league. And there were only 4 teams involved. We were one of them, and St. John St. Hugh's, and I believe a parish in Weymouth, and I think the other one was Arlington, I'm not sure. But we knew nothing about soccer. So I was trying to get information on who knew anything about soccer. I didn't know Don knew anything at the time. We had a picnic up at Fetherland Park for our sister parish, which was St. Paul's in Dorchester. And we had them out, and they brought a soccer ball with them and were playing. There was a lot of Haitians and Jamaicans, I guess. And someone saw one of our parishioners, Jose Rosette, who was playing with him. And so we got him, and he started to teach us dads about it, because we didn't know anything prior to that. So that got us started. And we started with one team in the CYO, which was under 16. And we traveled to the other towns. And our young players didn't know much than themselves. So, but gradually they got onto it. And then we had put notices in the paper about younger boys playing, so we had 2 teams of under 10 years old, and they would play each other every Saturday, and we came up with jerseys that had Lancers and Rovers, and I'm not sure where those names came from, if they were English teams or what, but we did that for 2 years. And then Don and Harvey Gross and a few more of them got involved, and we decided to incorporate Sudbury Youth Soccer. Also on that board, I think, was Russ Gessner and Harry Lockery, who was still in town. Steve Bancuti, right? Yeah. And Harvey Gross. Yeah. So it developed quite rapidly because there were a lot of people, like young people, looking to play it. And the girls, I know Steve Bancuti and Chuck Hunter had 2 teams, a girls' team and a boys' team, so they were quite busy. And Steve Bancuti also put in all our goal frames. In those days, they were solid, welded and put in the ground. And he donated all the material and his time to do that. So we gradually got people, and then we had a few clinics, and some of the dads learned to coach. Like myself, we didn't know anything, but little by little, we read a few books. Also, once we got going, we needed referees, and not too many referees around. But there were 2 women, Mary Lou Dixon, who went to clinics, and also Jane Newhouser, who taught school here. And so gradually, we started to get people that knew something about it.
So, Don, you came in on this?
As John mentioned, based on the success of George Horton's high school teams, and based on the apparent success of the little CYO league that John was involved with, and given the fact that some of us had played soccer as youths ourselves in college and in high school and enjoyed the sport so very much, we thought, golly, the children ought to get a chance to see what this is all about. John has started it. So I held a meeting at my house, to which George Horton came, a representative from Little League came in order to help us with administration, Harvey Gross, Steve Bancuti, Russ Gessner. And right there on the spot, we decided we would have the Sudbury Youth Soccer. Youth because we wanted the girls into it as well. That was a little unusual at the time, although Nancy Lewis was doing very well in the beginning of her girls' softball league. The idea was we would have a registration, see if anybody signed up. Well, more than anybody signed up. We had a lot of youth sign up for a fall program within the town. And the main problems were getting fields. And one of the prominent fields was the field behind St. Anselm's Church, now very much a residence homes. And other fields, Haskell was just barely on the getting going. And getting, as John mentioned, coaches. But the enthusiasm picked up very quickly, and the whole thing took off very successfully.
It's just amazing to think that you actually started from nothing. Now, I can see you had to get the goals built. You had to learn how to play and then how to coach.
Right.
And you had to...
Also officiating.
Oh,
right,
that's a whole skill in itself.
Right.
Wow. Yeah. And I think that... would you say this was a little bit of a European influence that was helping make this all possible?
Well, I would say it was, because Don knew a little bit about soccer, but I didn't. But this Jose Rosette, he got us started, and then Harvey came in, who was an Englishman, and Steve Bancuti, and a Hungarian, and
Don was the exception. He grew up on Long Island where they played
yes,
soccer.
He,
in
he was exposed to it.
Right, he had that advanced
Yeah.
exposure.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
but it was, I loved St. Anselm's Field because we didn't have to schedule with anyone. Father Burke was there at the time, and the parishioners, they gave us permission to use that field, and Park and Recreation would line it and mow it for us. And as Don recalled to me a little earlier, there was a drain culvert on one side near the
On the
gold mouth,
field,
so,
actually,
yeah.
on the field.
So they had to kind of be careful
We
of
had
that.
to put
but-
little cones around it so it wouldn't fall. Well, you wouldn't fall through. It had a grating over it. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then through George Horton, we got the high school for the older boys. And then we had 2 fields eventually at Haskell Field. And those are the frames that Steve Bancuti welded all up and really gave so generously of his time.
Now, when I first talked to Don about this, I said, now I want you to tell about how it began, things like uniforms. And when I said the word uniform, he looked at me and smiled. So I'm guessing you didn't start out with lovely uniforms like they have now.
Yeah, just shirts. That's all I
Just
had was
shirts.
shirts. In fact, my wife, Faith, was involved with that. There was an outfit in Worcester. I think we used to get them from there. And but then it got so big that we had to put people just in charge of uniforms and ordering uniforms and all. So, and then of course we started to get the shorts to go with it too.
yes,
and the
these
socks.
pictures on the table certainly show us uniformed youngsters, girls and boys,
Right,
that
yeah.
Steve Bancuti has provided.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was good
And
fun.
when the girls got into it, the
yeah.
program doubled. I think, I'm not sure, within a couple of years it went like from 400 to 800.
Wow.
The girls were ready
Wow.
for it. Yeah.
So it grew that fast.
It
that
did, yes.
Within a couple of years,
Yeah.
you were up to 400 boys, and then girls 800 total up
Yeah.
for the whole program.
Yeah, and we had a fellow, I'll think of his name in a minute.
A senior moment.
Yeah. Right. Was he a Steve too?
And what was it you do?
He had the girls program.
Ah,
Yeah.
the divided,
yeah,
the
and he-
logistics of managing something like
Yeah.
this, very complicated.
Right. Yeah.
And you had to
Steve
create.
Herman was his
Okay.
name. Yeah. He lived down off Windsor Road, I think.
So you created all these processes,
Yes.
and you had to get some support from the businessmen. You brought something here that I think
Well,
is
that-
kind of interesting. This was a second annual awards banquet
Yes, right.
in
yeah.
1974.
74, right,
So you
yeah.
begun having an awards banquet, and this was your second one. And
Actually, that didn't go too long, having banquets,
Okay.
because it was too
Got-
big.
yeah,
It got too big.
yeah.
nobody could house you all.
That's right. Yeah,
Okay.
we had that one, as I recall, at Curtis, the original Curtis Middle School.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's
Right.
fun to see some of the businesses that were
Yes.
supporting you here.
Yes.
There are names
Yeah.
that we don't
Cafe
even...
Stuga
Yeah.
is one of them.
And maybe you just want to...
Maroni's.
Yeah.
Was,
Yeah, Maroney's Bakery. Yeah, right.
Yes.
The Sudbury House Restaurant, which is where the Rugged Bear complex is now, and that was an old building, several 100 years old, I believe. They remodeled it, and then they finally tore it down. And but we used to go down there on Saturday nights. They used to have banjo rowdies and sing-alongs. So it
Can't
was
imagine.
quite a nice place. And
these
West
folks are-
Sports, yeah,
Yeah.
they're still here, but in
Yeah.
a different location.
Yeah.
They used to be where the Blockbuster Video is now. Yeah. And Country Living.
And the Mercury's and their mobile
Oh, yes,
station.
that's right,
I
mobile
recall
station.
that,
Yeah.
Do it
Yeah.
here.
And
Yes, we had wonderful support.
Yeah.
Even other organizations. For example, on our initial meeting, we had Doug Ross from Sudbury Little League there to help us with administration.
That's quite remarkable.
So the various organizations were all very helpful, as well as
It's
sponsors.
sort of a spirit of community pulling together to create something new. It's, to my mind, this is the ideal Sudbury.
Yeah, much was going on at that time. I mean, baseball, yes, had already begun, but at that time they were contemplating a whole summer program of baseball, and Nancy was getting her softball program going, and the men's softball was starting, and there was discussion as to whether we should have lights at the men's softball field. So there was lots of things under us, and now the soccer.
Yeah.
So there was great interest.
I don't know when the Pop Warner started.
Pop Warner, who
Yeah,
knows? Yes,
yeah.
that would be an interesting.
It was
Yeah,
an
right,
exciting time.
Yes, it
Right,
was.
yes.
It took a lot of work and a lot of energy.
And a lot of children.
A lot of children when you had them, that's for
I
sure.
was just going to
Yeah.
mention, I don't know, Steve Bancuti and Chuck Hunter had, as I said, the boys and a girls team, but Chuck's Hunter Jeannie, she became a coach for my two younger daughters, probably 7 or 8 years after, and she went to Maine. She was teaching up there, I think near Waterville, and she was coaching the high school team, and she had a very successful team, took them to state tournaments and all.
And she got
Yeah.
started here.
And then we had
Yeah.
some of the other young kids that were playing college and playing soccer in college. Don Russell is one of them, I recall, and Ken Kuna, who, and I think they're still both in Sudbury.
Wow.
But they were the really young coaches that knew what they were doing, you know, other than, of course, Harvey and them and Steve. who
Oh,
had played
that's fun.
all their childhood, yeah.
It sounds like
Right.
it was both satisfying as well as humorous.
Yes.
I must admit, there were some ulterior motives for some of us, because, for example, I speak for myself. One of my ulterior motives was to play more soccer. After all, I had played all my life, and now as a young man, I kind of missed it. So I hoped it developed into an adult program, and it did. It developed very much. The ladies formed teams, the men formed teams. So it passed right on up beyond the children and into the adults.
So you really got a complete program going. Now, if you were to pick out some particular thing that was humorous from the whole thing, I know Don's got a story.
Yeah.
I don't know about John.
Yeah, I really can't recall too many humorous things.
It was a lot of work, right, John?
It was, and you know, scheduling rides for the traveling teams once they got very proficient at it. We were going all over the place. So that was a chore. I mean, there were many facets of it that had to be taken care of.
Well, I know
Just,
driving
not just the uniforms, but
was a difficult and different thing. We didn't have seat belts in those days.
no, that's right.
And
yeah.
we didn't have minivans in those days. So I'm sure people would be appalled to see the way that everybody piled into a station
I'm
wagon.
afraid that's
Right.
true.
Station wagons were
confess.
big. Yeah,
Yeah.
And then the caravans of cars, too. That was,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
And talk about ulterior motives.
Oh,
I
yes.
think Don talked about some of the girls who...
Yes, I coached a girls' team, an older
Yes.
girls' team. We practiced behind St. Anselm's on the field that John mentioned. And I had wonderful turnout for practices, because after practice, the young ladies were at the point where they were learning to drive, and I suggested that I would get in my car, we could drive around the parking lot. And so that's what we did. We drove around after practice. Each one took a turn driving around the parking lot, and we almost took out a building once when we got a little out of control, which doesn't seem so funny at the time, but there we were.
Yeah, it was a lot of good, healthy fun,
was-
and
Absolutely.
older people nurturing the younger people. and everybody having some good exercise. And it's
Yeah.
just amazing to me that it grew from absolutely nothing to the major sport involving
And,
quickly hundreds of people. And
yes.
now I wouldn't dare say how many people it involves.
The story
Yeah,
has to be the same in most towns, I would think, because there's hardly a town, if any, that doesn't have a soccer program these days.
And what I like is that it was so many parts of the town coming together. Church leaders, the town recreation department, the high school, people who were really immigrants to America, long-time residents. Everybody just came together to make this and
Yeah.
make it good.
My wife used to say how sad this. She didn't know if she enjoyed it because it was just going from one field to the other, dropping one kid off, picking another kid up, and all.
Well, you helped build the town's character. And I don't think the town's character has changed very much, because that's still what the parents are doing, going from
Yeah.
one field to another.
Yeah, we enjoy it here in Sudbury, my wife and I. We've decided to stay. 4 of our 5 children are only 20 minutes from us, so that's something that we enjoy.
Well,
getting to see
it's
the grandkids.
a great town.
But Don was talking about the adults too, and I have a daughter playing in over 30 league and another one in over 40 league. And I first remember Pete Buxton. We didn't mention Pete Buxton, who's
Present
the
high school coach.
Yeah, the varsity
really?
coach, right? Yeah, he came in. He played, I think, college in Maine. He came from England also, but he's done very well with his team. In fact, they just were in the championship game, the North Division championship, and lost to Acton Boxborough yesterday. I happened to be at that game, and also the high school girls coach, Alicia Carrillo. She's done a wonderful job taking her teams to the tournament too, and they just coincidentally also lost to Acton Boxborough last week. But they've really done a great job. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you're still following it and that the teams
Yes.
are right in there pitching, and it's lots of fun. And I really want to thank you, Don and John, for sharing your memories with me and with the other people of the town who will be glad to hear these memories.
Thank you for
Our
having us.
camera people today are Lee Swanson and Bob Brownson. Our director is Lynn Puro, who is Channel 8 Community Television Coordinator. And I am Peggy Fredrickson, and I thank you for being with us for A Time to Remember.